Hello there, welcome back. This is a special What the Hell Is This? All about Borderlands. Now, what is Borderlands? Unless you're a video game guy or girl, you won't know what Borderlands is. Borderlands is this sort of shooter game going through this basic hellhole planet where it's all craziness and all, freaks and mutants, and it's a sarcastic game. Some people like it because of sarcasm, some people don't. But it's got a certain style, a certain thing, that's what it's about, and it does what it does for its audience. Now, because it's a popular game, they thought, okay, we can expand this into a film. But that was a decade ago, if not more. And since then, there's been rumours of a Borderlands film for a long time and nothing's ever happened. Until now. Well, until a few years ago when they started filming. Now is when the film gets released or abandoned is probably the best thing to say about it. It was abandoned, it wasn't released. It was just like, here you go. We did what we could, now it's over. No, because Borderlands, the film was a disaster. So originally it was developed for a while, there were some directors involved, some scripts written, and, people came and went until Eli Roth became involved. Now, he became involved when there was a script by Craig Mazin, who had done Chernobyl and who was doing The Last of Us adaptation. So that's a respectable writer who had done some good work, and he'd written an adaptation. Eli Roth took over as a director and rewrote his script. And by the time the film came out, Mazin did not want anything to do with the film and took his name off it, and you see the film, you know why. It does feel like it's been rewritten quite a bit, and I'm not sure how much there was left of the original script, but I'm guessing not much. I'm guessing seeing the film is like one of those things where the writer's like, I don't want my name anywhere near this mess. So by the time the film came out, you had like years of it been in production hell. Now, sometimes that happens because there's been strikes with the writing and the actors last year. A lot of films could not get their post-production finished. I mean, there's a case of Gareth Evans, who did Raid 2. He had to do some reshoots for his film that's coming on Netflix soon. But because Tom Hardy was a star, and Hardy had a couple of films he already committed to, and because the strikes had to wait a little bit before the reshoots could get done, or the additional shots could get done, they've been done, and now the film will be out soon. But that was kind of planned. It was just like a case of, okay, there's just these bits we need to fill in, and when he's available, we'll shoot them, and then we'll finish the film. Wasn't like a major thing, well, hopefully not anyway. And that's happened with some films. You realise you need to shoot some more stuff, and you add to the schedule and you shoot it. Other times, with something like Marvel, where they seem to reshoot a lot of the film, and sometimes you get a film like the Marvels, which is a disaster. And this film is much more in the case of the Marvels, where they reshot I'm pretty sure the ending plus bits throughout the film. And this is a film where you see massive holes in the plot with lots of voiceover. It's got all the hallmarks of a film that has been butchered repeatedly. I mean, have you ever seen a film Jonah Hex where it feels like half the film is gone? This film has the same feeling. Like there's lots of stuff that was shot that's just no longer there. The ending has a totally different tone to the rest of the film because it was shot by a different person. Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool and then went off the rails and directed Terminator Dark Fate, was brought in to supervise the reshoots of this film, which means you have a film with a very schizo feel because you have two different styles. Eli Roth's style, which is very haphazard and not the slickest thing, and Tim Miller, who is a very anonymous director, to be honest. In the case of Deadpool, he had a good script and a good sense of direction of what the script needed. And Terminator Dark Fate, there was no real decent script. So the film was very anonymous. But you do get a feel, even just watching it, I think as a viewer, you can pick up if someone's been shot, someone else has shot certain bits of the film. You just know, just by where the camera's placed and how the actors interact, there is a sense of a different energy behind it, and you do get that feeling here. But I'm not saying that the film did not need reshot. This film feels like it needs to be reshot, like the full thing. I'm just saying, basically, you can see the tampering, but you can also see that maybe the studio panicked when he got the first cut, because this film is such a mess that there's not a chance in hell this is a film that was good before it was tampered with. You know, this one is like, no, there's not a chance. Everyone seems miscast here. I mean, I did a video on the Fantastic Four, or Fan Four Stick, a month or two ago, and we were talking about how there's a difference between the early scenes and the later scenes, where you can tell there was a different director. But the early scenes seem to be unaffected by the later scenes, and it made up a massive disjunction. But you can sense of what the film was intended to be, and then how it got taken over. And this one, even what it intended to be, even the scenes of what it intended to be, has been messed about as well. But they don't seem to be that cohesive either. They just feel that there's just things that were shot, but there was no sense of how things were going to cut together properly to make a film with with characters who are motivated through the story, and they would do things that would get you interested. This thing just felt like it was shot like it was a mid-budget film with lots of CGI and not much clue about the style of what it needed to be. It just did not have a feel of that, and you also felt there was a lot of stuff cut out, so there was no sense of build, so the film just felt very unfocused. And now you probably notice I have not talked about the plot much, because there's not really one. It's just basically find something in the vault, open this vault, which this vault and this planet apparently has all these great weapons, and they have to find these little keys to open the vault. It's a treasure hunt type of movie, but it's done as if the people doing the treasure hunt had never seen a movie like that and just thought that the keys to the vault should be hanging around somewhere. You know, where you don't have to do much effort to find what's going on. It's almost like what have happened if you did Vader's Lost Ark and Indiana Jones just wandered over to Egypt and found it without any problems. That's basically the plot. Why bother investigating and figuring things out when you can just find it magically? That's what the film was like. So I'm not even going any further into the plot, because the plot's just lazy. But they had hired Eli Roth. Eli Roth's a weird character as a director. He makes films that are not that motivated. I mean, that's why I was saying early on that I don't think this cut would have been great. His original cut would have been great anyway, because he makes films like Hostel and like Cabin Fever and Thanksgiving that wander all over the place. They are not like cohesive, tight storylines. He likes actors who are eccentric, and he tends to let them run a lot. But he's kind of like Rob Zombie in a way that he overindulges his actors, and he underplays the importance of story and motivations, and what audience need to grip onto story. It just seems to be these vague stories that just float around. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I liked Hostel 2, but the first Hostel movie was just a wonder. And it feels like he thinks his films are smarter than they actually are. And a lot of time, a lot of his films just need to be reworked a lot and rewritten a lot, because they just feel like half of it is just stuff that doesn't need to be there, and there's other bits that are missing. And that's what I think they got with this film, was a real sense of it was a sci-fi movie that was meant to be a Guardians of the Galaxy rip-off, but there was no real motivation for any of the action, and you had a lot of actors doing stuff, which leads you to a film where some of the actor stuff tends to feel like it's been left on the cutting room floor. This is why we had for this film. Like Kevin Hart's in the film, but he's barely in the film, which suggests a lot of his stuff was cut. You know, it's like, you don't pay him that much money to barely be in the film. Obviously something got cut. There's no way you just put in this so few scenes. There's even a scene that early on, there's obviously a reshoot just to add a bit more of him in the film. And Ross got this thing of, he just tends to let films float and just be meandering. Like, he's trying to be Tarantino, because Tarantino lets his films flow, but he tends to know where the plot points need to be to keep your interest. And Roth doesn't get that. He just lets them float. So, that's a basic problem. It's like, you've got a guy like that making a adventure movie that's meant to be intriguing and have mystery, and there's no mystery. Like, you can figure out how it's going to end 10 minutes into the film. You know exactly how it's going to end. It's so obvious. And it's also, when you get to the end, how they get to the end and you know where it's going to is really stupid. Because that's part of the reshoots that they try and, I know, it was almost like the reshoot to try and make it even more stupid than it would have been in the first place. So it's just, this film is just this kind of messy kind of thing going on. Again, I don't even want to bother trying to explain the plot, because the plot is not worth it. It's not really worth it. It's probably the least amount of plotting ever in a film. It's just really, there seems to be the wander through location, and as if that's enough, and then you find the thing you need in about 2 minutes, and it's like, and you've tons of exposition for it and tons of wandering, but no real detective work. That's a film where people in a question, they don't do even basic research most of the time. It's that kind of film. And essentially, the film shortcuts through tons of stuff repeatedly, which could be reshoots, or it could be, you know, just bad writing. Who knows? In this film, it's a mystery. That's the only mystery that actually is it reshoots some really bad writing. So the film basically has a problem in that it cuts so much out and you can sense it. So they set something up which early on, which is Kevin Hart saved this girl from the station, and him and this other guy who he's working with disappear down to the planet which is called Pandora. And then Cate Blanchett, as a bounty hunter, is hired to find this girl from her father. She goes down and instantly finds him and enters this adventure. Now, the big problem with this really is it has been reshot. Like, the Kevin Hart's thing is definitely a reshoot. Definitely didn't to add, I don't know what, just more screen time. But it takes away the mystery of straight away of what's going on. It's instantly, it's like, okay, now you're going to have scenes that are pretty lifeless to get to the point. But also, it was obviously meant by murder, meant by mystery, where Cate Blanchett is a bounty hunter. She's meant to go and find this girl, and you're not meant to know anything about anyone who's with her until you meet them. But you've already blown 2 of the introductions beforehand, before you get to see when you're meant to introduce them properly in the film. So you've just thrown away all the character stuff straight away. But then when you get to them, they don't have any character stuff anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But she instantly goes to the planet. She's coerced to go and do this thing in a really boring way, and it's obvious from the author, Cate Blanchett, she's doing her best with this part, but it's not a well written part. A lot of time, I mean, I've seen some reviews saying she was just miscast. I was like, no, there's not enough part. It's like, yeah, they could have rewritten it to suit her more, but there's not enough part there. The part's badly written. You can only act so much if the part's badly written, and all her introductory dialogue is stuff that can be covered in an email to her, say, will you do this job, here's a lot of money, okay. Everything involved would have actually been better if she didn't meet through the first couple of scenes, probably. Because it's just bad dialogue, and it just makes her character look stupid, really, and not very good at her job. It's just Roth attempting to make her look cool and tough, and it just doesn't work. And it's just lame. It's a lame sequence set in this futuristic world that just looks like a rip-off of the Earth from Avatar. The James Cameron one, also with a planet called Pandora in it. And it's just lame. And then she goes to the planet, and then you suddenly see that they've cut tons of the investigations out, where she's meant to go and try and find this place and this girl in this middle of this planet, and get into a fight scene which they cut down so much that it was barely a fight scene, but you know she's shooting at people, and it's like, so that's meant to be the introduction to the planet, so you can show how dangerous the planet is and how weird it is, and you cut it down to almost nothing. And then she has scenes where she's investigating, and she just shows a photograph to people. Have you seen this girl? And it's like, you're meant to be like a top bounty hunter, and that's all you're doing. It's just like, it's just lame. But somehow someone tells her, oh, they were here a while ago, and it's like, it just feels a film that should actually have something more ingenious involved, but they don't. And so straight away she goes from the planet having a fight, and then suddenly she has a scene or two getting to the other place, and then she's suddenly into that place and there's a fight scene with the people she's trying to find, and then they're all on the run from the baddies. And it's like, well, there's no introduction to characters, no interaction with characters to see who they are, what they're about, why these characters interact with each other. It's just a series of action beats that, well, you've all seen all the action beats before, and none of the actual action beats have any meaning because there's no character stuff. The character stuff's really lame, and there's no meaning within the action that tells you anything about the character. It's just like they're doing action beats we've seen in other films. So you're just uninvolved, and you're just watching going, okay, this is happening. And at this point, you're like 50 minutes into the film, you're thinking, this is bad, this film's bad, I'm in trouble here. Now, at this point I was thinking, okay, this is a Wild Wild West. It went further at some point. There's something worse. And then the film just kept on going like that. There's an action scene where they're escaping, there's lots of explosions, and you know, apparently it's the team getting together. There's going to be a team for the rest of the movie, but you don't know anybody, and it's just blah. And basically, they have a chase, and then they have to establish who everyone is, but they just establish them as, this is their name, that's it. You don't actually get the character beats for anybody, and then they're on the mission, but there's no character beats throughout that's actually very distinctive. It's just basically, that's this person, that's this person, that's this person, but what they're actually about, who knows, no one cares. So you have a bunch of actors who are kind of feel very miscast, and the reason is because they've got nothing to do, so they can't establish something in the character. They can't make the character suit them and actually have things that could build to be interesting. They've just been given parts, and sometimes they've been given parts that don't suit them. So instead of actually saying, okay, how do we write this part to take in what the actor has and to make it interesting as a part, they don't do anything like that. That takes too much effort. So you have Kate Blanchett, who's a very good actress, who's been in tons of great stuff, and she gets the most basic character beats you'll ever see in a film. And it's like, it's embarrassing. It's like, can't you be a bit inspired and realise she's really good? You should give her some good stuff to do, not dialogue that was written in the back of a, postcard or something. That's what it feels like. It's just basic stuff you see in every film. Kevin Hart gets the worst. Kevin Hart does feel like half his stuff's on the cutting room floor. He turns up to save the girl early on, and then he doesn't say much, and he shoots a lot of guns. And because he's not an action guy, he's playing an action guy, you would think they would need to actually build him up to realise, why is Kevin Hart playing this character when he's obviously not suited. So you have to find funny things for him to do to realise, oh, maybe he's a lot cleverer than he looks, and maybe his skills are in a different direction than you expect. None of that happens. You just think this guy's miscast. And why is he in it, and why is there nothing to do? Because obviously so much of it was cut out. I'm sure whatever he had to do was part of the plot they cut out. Jamie Lee Curtis turns up to do all the exposition, but she gets boring stuff as well. And she's like, it's like, well, she's normally good in films. In this film, she's not very good. And a lot of it's just basically, she's not given anything to do. It's worth a damn. So you've got her, Jamie Lee Curtis and Cate Blanchett in scenes together, and they're both bad, or they're both mediocre. And that's not a good sign. That's a blaming the director on the script, because you're not giving anything to do. And the action scenes just keep on going. There's a scene they have to go and find this other part of the lock that will get them into the thing, and have to go through this tunnel and into this layer of all these psychos who are the villains. Which sound just like Cyclos, which were the villains from Battlefield Earth, and that tells you a lot about what the film is. That same feel. And at this point, I'm thinking this is not just Wild West. This is Batman and Robin, because at this point, and there's these layers. It feels very Schumacher, which says of everything's been built up, but it's all very tacky, very blocked, and it's been built. All these sets have been built in a way that makes it impossible to get a good camera angle on anything, because it's just all garish, and there's no atmosphere. There's nothing to play off, and the only way to be in that environment is to play someone who's essentially a living cartoon with no depth. And at that point, when you're meant to be having the scary sequences, that's what you're thinking that's a bad sign. And all the action scenes they remain to the last very generic and very much unmotivated. Like, everyone's doing the poses, but it's like, does this lead to this? Does this not? They do the pose and they shoot lots of people, but what's the action meaning within the action to get you from point A to B? Well, things can happen, and that's all you should ever ask for. And that's what the mentality of the film is. Like, Kevin Hart's character apparently makes a sacrifice. Why? Because there's a plot point suggesting we should have something happen here, and how does he escape it? Who cares? And the whole film was like, who cares? It's like, I don't know. And again, it's like, was this just part of the normal Eli Roth vagueness in writing, or was it part of the reshoots? What is it? Because a lot of the film feels like an Eli Roth film in a sense of very vague, very much just let the actors do what they want, but very surface depth. And that's what this film is doing, but it's just giving them a garish background. And it's just like, you can tell the stamp of the director here, but it's always worst instincts. And it just has no forward momentum. And the fact that it's coming out just after Deadpool, and it came out a year after Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and you're getting the sense of these other films who did this so much better, and could be cartoonish and could have emotions as well, and it's like, and their plots were even more ridiculous than the plot in here, but they pulled it off because they cared, and this film doesn't seem to care about doing anything that interesting. And until you get to the end, and like I said before, you get a sense of a different director and different motivation director, so you end up in this feeling of this doesn't match to what's come before, and it's really stupid, and it's very corporate, and it's very much, oh, let's have something inspiring, how even though the rest of the film is meant to be like very cynical, but cynical in a way that was cynical written by someone who's pretty boring and says everything is cynical you've heard a million times before. There's no genuine cynicism in the world. It's just like bits of dialogue and bits of philosophy that's come from the most basic barrel cynical person. Everything you've ever heard with someone who's cynical, the most basic stuff you'd say, yes, what you get in this film is dialogue. There's nothing unique in it. And this end is meant to be empowering, and it just doesn't match with the rest of the film, and it's just a mess. And the whole film is just a mess. It's basically the fault of the producers and the studio, who just looked to the director and said, oh, he can do it, when it's obvious, if they'd actually looked at his films and how he paced films and how he put films together, that he was not a good match for this material. He was just not wasn't going to work. And it just, even from scene to scene, he's terrible at scene progression, scene momentum, to keep it going. He tends to just let things, he might get a good sequence and then it'll lag for like 20 minutes in the film and then make another good sequence, but he's not good at having the highs and lows planned out and having subtle camera moves that tell you a sense of the someone in charge of this film. It's just like the film just hangs there a lot of the time. And it's like they did not look at that and look at his films critically and say, this could be a problem for what we need in this film, for this film to be. They just didn't do it. And so they ended up getting a messy film that was just like his other films, which had to reshoot. And they never looked at the cast and went, what? No. They didn't look and say, that person's miscast, that person's miscast. You know, it's like everybody in the film feels miscast because A, they are, and B, the project's not been moved around to actually suit them so that you can actually find reasons for them to be in it. The film's too lazy to actually embrace them going against the typical casting of what you'd expect and found reasons for this could be an interesting take. It's just like, yeah, the casting's all we're doing here. We're not actually going to do anything else. So you have Kevin Hart as what should be a big macho soldier, and he's a small guy, and a part that requires presence, a quiet presence. You get a guy who's small and who doesn't have any mysterious presence. It's completely miscasting. And instead of embracing that and trying to find ways to actually subvert everything and make it something interesting, they just do nothing. And then it's like nothing throughout the film. And a lot of the actors just look as if they're lost. It's like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing here? What do you want? And it's just a sense of, it's like, sometimes you think, that feels like a very early take that they've not reshot. Like, they should have reshot that, that's not quite right yet. It feels like, sometimes you feel that actors, like, at a take just before they reach what they should be doing and they've went on to the next shot. There's that sense in the film, it's like, the actors are not getting much chance to do what they do, or they've chosen the wrong take, or whatever, I don't know. It just is off. And again, from the pacing to the scripting, to the acting, the casting, it makes you feel you actually are watching something with Batman and Robin, and that kind of film where it's just like there's just this hell of zero energy floating through the film. So a film that's an hour 40 feels like it's never ending. So I saw it with two other people, and both thought it was one of the most horrible things ever. It was like everyone hated it, and one of them was a Borderlands fan, and we're waiting for him to start crying, but he never did, the selfish bugger. At least that would have cheered us up a little bit. But no, he didn't. But yeah, the thing is, this is still not the worst film I've seen this year. I mean, Our Girl still wins it for being terrible, but this one's the second worst, and it's just stunningly terrible, and it's just like, and everything involved in it could have been averted by just not casting Eli Roth as a director, not putting him in that place, and not basically saying, do a low budget action movie first and show you these skills, because he wants to film, he's got lots of money thrown at it, but he doesn't have the skills to shoot an action scene. And that's a real problem. So yeah, this is a disaster. And it's like, I think he thought he was being John Carpenter. Because he's tried to have Kate Blanchett play a kind of Kurt Russell character. But he doesn't realise John Carpenter has ideas that float through the films. He's more of a suspense man than an action guy, John Carpenter. But he's great at atmosphere, and a sense of humour, and generally having a sense of build and things happening. So even when he's been silly, he's intentionally silly, and he's letting you know it's intentional. The John Carpenter film this resembles most is Ghost of Mars, which is not like John Carpenter film you should be aspiring to. But honestly, I'd much rather watch Ghost of Mars any day of the week than this one, because at least Ghost of Mars is an eccentric great director having a bad day. This is just like a never was director doing something unspeakable. So yeah, avoid this film. It's terrible. It's absolutely awful in every possible way. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.